Well, welcome to week 5 for green design. You can see that week 5 we're jumping into section 2, which is about waste management. And week 5 also goes April 29 to May 5. And I've broken it down for you into all the activities that you have. And I haven't put the Tuesday, Thursday on there. You can organize this any way you want. But you can see that we're going to do all of this section 2, all of the waste management unit this week. And actually for the rest of the course, we're going to be doing like one section a week. So we did section 1 already, there's section 2, then you can see sections 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're in section 2 this week. Now if you're a little bit behind, I encourage you to get old work caught up. Need to get your grade to at least where you're passing. We're just about reached the halfway point of the class now, so you can't be getting any further behind. Well, you see the different things we're going to look at this week: reduce, reuse, recycle. Also special types of waste, talk about those. For this week, the work you have, the Class Connect write-up, of course, each week you have those, but you also have something called My Finishing Plan, which is some real easy points. All you do is answer these questions. Like, what is your current grade percentage and the points earned in the class? Make sure you answer both parts of that. What grade percent do you want? Like 60%, 70%, 80%? What do you want? Then figure out how many total points you'll need above what you currently have to get to the grade you want, to get to that percent. So be exact on these questions, please. Use the right amount of points and right percentages, whatever I ask. Please answer these questions fully. This is easy points for the class. All right, let's jump into section 2. So in section 2, again, we're talking about waste management. You can see the stages of waste management, the 3 R's. You've heard about all of these: composting, etc. Now, normally I'd go through the Class Connect write-up, but you can see the Class Connect write-up just has some general questions about the lessons, the 2 different lessons. So I'm going to have to go back and forth to look at the Class Connect write-up questions. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what this whole section 2 waste management talks about. So lesson 1 is all about reduce, reuse, and recycle, the waste management processes, things like that. Now, what is waste? Anything that's unwanted or unusable. Of course, there's some things that get put in waste that are still usable, right? Like aluminum cans. So that would probably be considered, it's unwanted. But many usable things also get put into waste, which is bad. That's why we need to recycle. What happens to waste? Well, most of it ends up getting put into landfills. Some of it gets recycled, things like that. But you need to read about this, where you talk about how landfills can leak pollutants into the soil, into our waterways, different things like that. But some current landfills, they use really thick, heavy plastic liners, even cement liners, so that it does not leak into the soil and the water eventually. Some landfills even, they have them covered. They can capture the methane gas that's produced, and then that gas can be used to power equipment at the landfill. So there are lots of things that land waste that we don't know about landfills, that you may not know about. Practice. Go ahead and practice and see if you answer those questions. Waste management, what is the whole thing? Is collecting, processing, disposal, monitoring. Make sure you go through all 4 of those things to learn about what each of them are. Little practice activity, a drag and drop. See if you can match those things effectively or correctly. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Of course, reduce, that would be probably a more important thing. If we could all reduce what we do, we'd have much less impact. And of course, there's reuse things, give away clothing instead of throwing it away, etc. Then recycle, like aluminum cans, bottles, things like that. So reduce, talking a little bit more about what reducing is. Carrying a tote bag with you when you go to the grocery store. That way you don't use extra plastic bags. Of course, lots of places are going to pay as you throw trash away. Some grocery stores in California and other places are charging you if you do not bring your own bag. They charge you an extra nickel or something like that. So some places trying to force us to do the right thing, which is too bad. We should actually do the right thing, shouldn't we? reuse things. So if you're finished with something, you can, like you use old clothes for rags, different things like that. Now they're taking old clothes, old jeans and stuff, and they can make insulation for houses, like the insulation in your walls can be used for that. Or they can take old bottles and make carpet. So that's really reusing things in many different ways. So practice on reuse. So go through this, see how you can do on that. And finally, recycle means taking a product and putting another use to it. So you change it into another product, but also recycling is, of course, changed into its original product. So you can take aluminum cans and they can make more aluminum cans, or you take bottles, make more bottles, different things like that. Of course, you've probably seen where you can take tires and crush them up, and they can be used as the ground for parks and play areas. So lots of ways that things can be used. Of course, the nice thing about this is that when you recycle stuff, not only does it not go into the landfill, but you're also not having to produce more of it. So those are two of the benefits of recycling. Pre-consumer waste. That's stuff that's never used by the consumer. So there are different things like that. Wood scraps from building a house, or like the packaging that you get when you buy a new CD or DVD or something like that. Think of all that waste that's created. If you just go to your Walmart or local Sam's Club and look at the packaging that they use, a lot of that package isn't needed except for security purposes. So the whole recycling process, so go through all of this, please. I'm not going to take you through all of it. I'm just going to hit the bottom one so I can move along in the slides, but you need to understand what the recycling process is, how that works. And downcycling is something somewhat new. The product is recycling as something less valuable, lesser quality. So like plastic, every time you use it, the quality is less and less. So there are some issues with things like that people need to be aware of. So plastic bottles might be used, a couple of times over again, but then you can take those plastic bottles when they're no longer usable as bottles, and you can make things like this shows this rubber curbing, or paper can probably only be recycled a couple of times and then it needs to be used for something else. So downcycling is another thing to think about. So practice, see what you learned about downcycling. Benefits of recycling, so read through this. Of course, it saves energy, it saves time, it less air pollution because you don't have to burn as much trash. Not as much goes into the landfill. So the waste hierarchy, and that's the way of ranking the usefulness of reducing, reusing, recycling. So you'll have your own thoughts on which one you think is most important, but you can read what this says. Reducing is most helpful, because if you reduce in the beginning, then you're not going to have the reusing and recycling issues that you need to talk about. So the whole idea there would be, if you carry the canvas bag to the grocery store, where you're reducing the number of plastic bags, so you don't even have to worry about reusing or recycling plastic bags, right? So a little practice there. Designing for waste management, or how can they design products that can be more eco-friendly for the waste management components. So in this whole unit, this is what we talked about, all these things. So of course you use the information you just learned in lesson 1 to do the week 5 class connect write-up. And hopefully you've learned something in there. Okay, now lesson 2, we're going to talk about special types of waste and how certain things have to be cared for differently from the waste that we normally think about. Monofill is a landfill that just stores one type of waste. So you could have a landfill just for tires, landfill just for ash from incinerators. You'd have a medical landfill that only takes unused prescription pills and syringes and things like that. So there are specific landfills rather than just the general landfills that most of us are used to seeing. Biodegradable, that stuff can be broken down by organisms. So biodegradable it doesn't need to have erosion to break it down, but it's a natural process. So of course the food we eat is biodegradable, because if we left it outside, it would eventually be gone. It would go away. And then there are other things that are biodegradable, things that are not biodegradable. So some landfills that might take only biodegradable things, and then they use organisms that break them down. Now biodegradable, that releases methane. So of course as the organisms work, they produce gas, and that methane can contribute to greenhouse and global climate change possibly. So those are some issues to think about, but that's why some companies capture that methane gas and then they can use it as an energy source. So practice, try to answer that question correctly. Hopefully you can. Composting. Of course, many of you probably do composting. Your parents do if you have a garden. Of course, compost is really decaying organic matter. So it could be leaves, grass, those types of things. And the compost, the great thing about that is it can condition your soil, make your plants grow better, more healthy, so then you can continue to use that compost to grow better plants in your own garden, which is beneficial. Because if you can source more food from within your own household, within your own garden and yard and things like that, then it's so much it's easier on the landfills, and you minimize your ecological footprint, right? So some things that can be composted, of course, fruits and vegetables, nuts, the pizza boxes, paper plates, napkins, not styrofoam or anything like that. Newspapers, compostable. Benefits of composting. Look at this, over 25% of most cities' waste is compostable. So we throw away, and I do it sometimes I mow my lawn about once a week, but every other time I have to put the grass in the trash can and it ends up going to the landfill. I wish there was another place I could put the grass, but I don't have a big enough place to do composting. So I wish, if somebody could take my grass clippings, then we could help with that. Now we're getting into yard waste. So yard waste, the grass, leaves, the flower, the trimmings, all of that. Yard waste is huge in the landfills. Electric waste, we're getting into that. Unwanted computers, cell phones, is also called e-waste. And you're seeing more and more of this stuff being recycled. And of course the plastic can be broken down and used again for other things. The computer monitors and the TV sets with the tubes, they have heavy metals, and some are valuable metals, but some of those metals too can be dangerous. And a lot of companies are now processing these pieces of equipment and getting the gold and silver and other valuable metals out of them, and then making money that way. So many different ways that things like that can be recycled. Take back program. When a company makes a product that's unsafe to throw away, then they actually collect it. So you might have like cell phone companies. They'll say, bring in your old cell phone. We'll give you $20 discount on a new one or something like that. Some of them are free. Best Buy, I think, if you buy a monitor, you can turn your old monitor in for free. So there's some really interesting things right there, and you can see the government is starting to get involved in this. Is set laws that make companies responsible for taking things back. Of course, maybe they're stepping in too far. Who knows? Practice to see what you know about take-back programs. Batteries, really bad. Batteries, they can leak, and those acids and things get into the soil and the groundwater. So you want to recycle all the batteries that you can. And you're starting to see more places that take batteries to recycle. Fluorescent lights. Of course, now we have the compact fluorescence that people are putting in place of the incandescent light bulbs. But it's dangerous. There's some dangers with the compact fluorescence. In fact, if you break it, you're supposed to use rubber gloves to clean it up and use a respirator and things like that. So we have these technological advances. However, they come with a cost, don't they? So practice, so go see what you can answer correctly on that. So that's lesson 2, really fast. Monofills, biodegradable materials, composting, electric waste. We talked about all those things. And last is the career connection. Of course, there's part of the Class Connect write-up for the week talks about career, so find out about what this guy does, what his company does, and make sure you answer that Class Connect write-up question effectively down at the bottom here. So that's all I have for you. So I look forward to your work coming in, but if we go back up here to the course home, we'll take a look at week 5. Again, week 5, you have the Class Connect write-up, the finishing plan that I showed you, and the study questions, the quiz, and of course I have the quiz previews posted, and then the assignment. So all these sections are very similar. There's the quiz preview, so you're all ready to go. I look forward to your work coming in. If you're behind, please get old work made up. Thank you. Bye.